Buying a car used to be pretty simple, right? Now, you walk into a showroom and you're hit with this huge list of choices. Petrol, diesel, CNG, electric, hybrid. It can make your head spin. But don't you worry. We're going to cut through all that noise and help you figure out which car is genuinely perfect for your needs. And, of course, for your wallet. So let's get into it.
This really is the big question, isn't it? And the thing is, there's no single right answer. It's totally different for everyone. It all depends on your daily drive, what your budget looks like, how often you take those long road trips, and even where you live. So this isn't about finding the best car, period. It's about finding the absolute best car for you.
All right, so let's start with a quick high-level look. You can see right away there are some pretty clear trade-offs. Petrol cars, they're the cheapest to actually buy. But EVs, man, their running costs are the lowest. Diesel is a powerhouse for fuel efficiency on long trips, while CNG and EVs are the undisputed champs when it comes to clean air. Now, let's dig into what all this really means, starting with what's actually under the hood. Before we even get to the money or the mileage, we've got to understand the core technology. I mean, are we talking about an engine that literally burns fuel or a motor that just uses electricity? The difference is absolutely huge, and it affects everything from how the car feels to drive to how much you'll pay to keep it on the road. Just take a look at this. This is your traditional internal combustion engine. It's an incredible piece of engineering, for sure, with hundreds of moving parts all working together. But all that complexity, well, that comes at a cost. More parts mean more things that can wear out, and it means you're signing up for regular maintenance like oil changes and new filters. So how does it actually make your car go? It's basically a four-step dance. First, it sucks in a mix of air and fuel. Second, a piston squeezes that mixture really tight. Third, and this is the magic part, a spark ignites it, creating a tiny, controlled explosion that forces the piston down and creates power. And finally, it pushes all the used-up gases out the exhaust. It's powerful, but it's a very intense mechanical process. Okay, now compare all that to an electric motor. It's just so much simpler. We're talking way fewer moving parts. There's no engine oil to change, no spark plugs, no fuel tank, and absolutely no exhaust pipe. Because, nothing is being burned. A big battery sends power straight to the motor, and the motor spins the wheels. That's it. This simplicity is a total game changer for maintenance. And here's where EVs have this really cool trick up their sleeve. It's called regenerative braking. See, in a normal car, when you hit the brakes, all that forward energy is just wasted as heat. But in an EV, the motor can actually spin backward, acting like a little generator. It captures that energy and sends it right back into the battery. It's a brilliant way to squeeze out more range, and it even saves wear and tear on your actual brake pads. So we've seen how different the tech is. Now let's follow the money, because that's what it really comes down to for a lot of us. The sticker price you see at the dealership, that's really only the beginning of the story. To get the real picture, we need to look at the total cost of owning the car, and that includes fuel and all that maintenance we talked about. So let's hit the big one first, the upfront cost. EVs are still more expensive to buy. There's just no getting around that right now. A great real-world example is the Tata Tiago. The electric version costs about 2,69,000 rupees more than the CNG model. That's a pretty significant chunk of change you have to be ready for. But here's where the EV starts to claw back some of that money. Remember that super simple motor? It means no oil changes, no fuel filters, no exhaust systems to repair, ever. Over the long haul, studies are showing that EV maintenance can be 30 to 40% cheaper than a petrol car's. Your main costs are going to be things all cars need: tires, suspension, and eventually a checkup on the battery. Now for the biggest factor of all, the fuel costs. And this is where EVs can really shine, but there's a huge catch. If you can charge your car at home overnight, your running costs are going to be crazy low. We're talking just over ₹1.50 per kilometer. But, and this is a big but, if you have to rely on public fast chargers all the time, that cost advantage pretty much vanishes. It can be just as expensive as running a CNG car. That's something you really need to think about. So you put it all together, the higher price, the cheaper maintenance, the savings on fuel, and you have to ask, when do you actually break even? When does that EV finally pay for itself? Well, based on charging at home, the magic number is right around 123,000 kilometers. That's the point where the EV officially becomes the cheaper car to own. So what does 123,000 kilometers actually look like in terms of time? Well, it completely depends on how much you drive. If you're only driving about 1,000 kilometers a month, it's going to take you over 10 years to see that return on your investment. But here's the key takeaway. If you drive a lot, say 3,000 kilometers a month, that EV starts to make a ton of financial sense, paying for itself in under 4 years. Of course, it's not all about money, is it? For a lot of people, the environmental impact is a huge factor. But you have to balance that with the practical, day-to-day realities of driving, like how far you can go and how easy it is to refuel. And this is exactly why it matters so much. This quote from an environmental study puts it pretty bluntly. The cars we drive are a major source of air pollution, especially in our cities where we live and breathe. So let's take a look at what the science actually says about these different fuels. Now, before we get into the pollution numbers, it's good to know what they were testing in this study. As you can see, the huge majority of vehicles were motorcycles, followed by cars, Jeeps, and vans. This just gives us a good picture of the typical mix of vehicles on the road in the area they studied. So what did they find? Well, it turns out there's no single clean fossil fuel. They all have their own issues. Diesel engines, for example, pump out high levels of sulfur dioxide and smoke. CNG is generally cleaner, but surprise, it actually releases a lot more carbon monoxide than diesel does. And here's a weird one. Switching a car from gasoline to CNG is mostly good, but it can actually increase nitrogen oxide emissions. But when you're talking about the air in our cities, right where we are, EVs are just in a league of their own. Zero tailpipe emissions. It makes them the absolute winner for improving the air quality around us. Now, of course, there's a whole other conversation about where the electricity comes from, but that's a much bigger topic for another day. But, and you knew there was a but coming, here's the big practical hurdle for EVs: range. With a petrol or diesel car, you can drive for hundreds of kilometers, pull over, and be full of fuel in 5 minutes at a station that's pretty much anywhere. With an EV, you're working with a more limited range, and charging can take anywhere from a half hour to many hours at a network of stations that's still being built out. This is what people call range anxiety. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. The tech, the cost, the emissions, the practical stuff. So now let's put it all together and give you some clear advice based on how you actually drive. Let's figure out what's the best fit for you. Right, so if you mainly drive in the city and have a pretty predictable daily commute, an EV is a fantastic choice. The running costs are just unbelievably low if you can charge at home, and the silent, smooth drive is perfect for traffic. Now, if the upfront cost of an EV is just too steep, CNG is your next best bet. It also has great fuel economy and low running costs for that kind of city use. But what if you spend a lot of your time on the highway? Well, then your priorities totally change. A diesel engine is brilliant for that. It gives you all that power, that torque for easy cruising, and the fuel economy on long stretches is just excellent. A hybrid is another really strong option here, giving you better mileage than a standard petrol car, but with none of that range anxiety you might get with a full EV. And finally, what if your number one priority is just the lowest possible price to get into a new car? In that case, the good old petrol car is still king. It's got the most affordable price tag, you can find fuel absolutely everywhere, and the technology is so proven that any mechanic on any corner can work on it. So what's the bottom line? The whole car world is changing faster than ever. Batteries are getting better and cheaper, car ranges are getting longer, and charging stations are popping up all over the place. The right choice for you today might be a totally different car in just a few years. But for now, you have the tools to make a really smart decision. The future of driving is going to be exciting, and the perfect car for you is definitely out there. You just have to find it.